Yay. Hello. Welcome back, Critical Conversations. My name is Karissa Dean. I'm your host, and today we have Renee Anderson back again. You might know her as Wild Oregon Girl if you are following her on Instagram. Renee has been on the show before talking through just being on social media, mental health, all these types of things. But that's not what she's sharing all the time. And so I wanted to bring her back and let her kind of thrive in her element, what she does as a artist, a photographer, a travel blogger. She's a writer. And what she does, what she has created is some beautiful tips, tricks, and travel, like a travel guide, I guess, to Oregon. But I think it resonates with people outside of Oregon because she shares a lot of like how-tos. So today we're going to dive in and let her kind of thrive in that element. Renee, I'm going to throw it over to you to kick us off.
It's so good to be back. Traveling, yeah, that's kind of my forte. I spent 49 weeks on the road in 2023, 70,000 miles all around the state of Oregon. And so I've learned a lot through trial and error, and I'm happy to share about that and, how to get prepared to travel, how to stay sane on the road, and answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So I travel a lot, but I think you like you're like way off the charts. Tell me what it is for you, because I always get like a little bit of travel anxiety and I end up panic packing, overpacking, and I'm always late when I am getting out the door on a road trip. So talk to me about that situation.
Yeah, being prepared. So I totally get what you're saying. I remember part of being excited for a trip is the packing, right? And picking out your outfits and just trying to envision in your mind what it's going to be like. So I definitely would overpack in the beginning and pack way ahead of time, like 2 weeks ahead of time. Nowadays, I can throw things together in a couple of hours, but that's come with practice. So um, I always like to know where I'm going, and look up the weather and the climate and have a couple of different options. I travel primarily in Oregon, so that makes it a bit easier for me just because I'm familiar with the state. But layers is number one, and like I said, being prepared. So what I'll do is I'll look at a place that I'm going to go, the coast. Let's say in we have August coming up, July and August. So pretty nice months over there. And I put together kind of a capsule wardrobe that helps me along. So I have my basics that are always in my suitcase now. What does that look like? That is a nice pair of jeans that will just, get through anything. A couple pairs of black leggings, usually like a long one and then like a short one for hiking or going out on the beach. I've got some long tank tops to go with that, some big t-shirts for sleeping, some little shorts, and then something I've done to just make it more fun is I'll pick a theme for each trip. So that could be, usually depends on what I'm doing. So if I'm going to go on a boat, then I'll have like a nautical theme, and that kind of helps me pick out themed t-shirts or a dress or something like that. And I've actually gone as far as to storyboard costumes for events and stuff where I'm going, but I know that's a little extreme, but I don't know. It just kind of makes it more fun, takes out some of that chore-ness of it and adds a little more magic to it. And I find that I believe that when you are more creative, the environment will reflect that. So that's kind of my process around planning like outfits and that sort of thing. I do have a list. I also travel primarily by car, so I know that when you take to the skies, you have to think a little bit differently. I know you primarily travel further than I do, so that takes a different type of planning. But I always have a roadside safety kit in my car, and I also have a snack bag in my car, and extra water, and then so I was a bartender for a long time, and I was an event bartender, and I worked with a guy who was a Vietnam vet, and he said, "You drive a Jeep. Can you live out of your Jeep for 2 weeks? Because like that's what you need to be able to do." So he helped me figure out how to put together a kit. So I have like canned food and water, but I have like coconut water in Tetra packs and things too. Nuts, just a lot of shelf stable items. So I'm always traveling with that, which comes in handy too because planning where you're going to eat and how that all works is its whole own agenda as well.
That's always like the argument is like, are we packing car snacks or are we stopping along the way? Are we like trying to get where we're going? So how much time and effort are you putting into those types of questions?
Yeah, so for me, I'm doing a combination of visiting businesses just in the nature of what I do. And usually that involves food, which is a good thing and a bad thing because I have a sensitive stomach. So when I'm traveling, I've also got to, watch what I'm eating too. I don't have a gallbladder. And so that's a whole thing, road trips and bathrooms. So I look at where I'm going to be eating and who I'm meeting up with. So I know I'll have a couple of meals out and then I'll plan around that. So usually I'm trying to get to my destination pretty quickly, especially if I'm solo traveling. If I'm solo traveling, I always have my own snacks, so I don't have to stop in. It just seems safer and quicker to me. If I've got the family along, though, I'll usually plan for like a lunch halfway, and I try to make that someplace fun or memorable. I'm a big fan of McMinimans around the state of Oregon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a game to go to the mall. They usually have art and are at historical locations. They have big parking. Sometimes you can take the dogs on property. So that is kind of how I plan the food thing. If I'm in a house and I would love to like cook local food, which is something that I try to put into my trips too. I know when we stayed at your house, we were able to pick up some local goodies, and that was really cool. But if I'm in a hotel, it's like I will bring a little packets of broth with me, like trail bars, nuts. I always have nuts with me, granola, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So like that's the thing. I always am like, what do I bring as far as snacks? And Ruby, my daughter, she's 10. I swear to God, it's like some weeks she doesn't eat at all and you're like trying to shove food down her throat. And then other weeks she's like a ravenous 16-year-old boy that I like can't keep up with. So I was laughing because when you were saying, I always have a bottle of water in my car, and I'm like, is that like an Oregon thing? Like, did somebody teach us to always have water in our car and have like nuts? Because I definitely have both of those things in my car at all times.
Yeah. I know growing up, like with the snowstorms, my dad would always say, well, you've got to have water in case like you get broken down. And I used to have like, I went through a ton of cars that weren't reliable. So I'd have to have water in case they overheated.
Yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, my family, they can be extreme sometimes. Like, oh, you'll probably crash and be stuck in a snowbank for 3 weeks. So you better have your nuts.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, this must just have been like somewhere in our childhood. Okay, so I love that. And, let's talk about this for a second because I think there's a misconception for when you're traveling that you have to pack it all from home, right? So, like you mentioned going to my beach house. I I used to pre-shop, pack this cooler, hassle around with a cooler, hassle around with ice, and then it's like if it's a hot day or something, we're in a panic because I got to get to the house to put it in the fridge and we don't have extra time to stop and be adventurous. And what I've learned in the last 10 years is to shop local. And why, like, not just for like the ease of like me and packing, but like it's actually really good for the local economy. So talk to me about that a little bit. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree 100%. One of our favorite things to do as a family, just like you, I used to pack everything from home and then we would be pressured to eat these tuna sandwiches or whatever, which do not sound that good once you're actually at a place. And so we will shop in the community that we go to as soon as we get there. We'll go to whatever local market there is, especially if there's a farmer's market or something like that where
Mm.
we can get actual local food. And we'll just stock up, and it's kind of a special thing. And so 100% for doing that and not over worrying about having all of the supplies. I found that if I have my shelf stable stuff, my nuts and
Yes.
granola bars, to go back to that, like,
Yeah.
I used to have the meats and the cheeses and the, pre-made salads and all this stuff, and it doesn't get eaten. It gets thrown
Yeah.
out a lot of times. So might as well just go and get what you can locally and splurge, especially on local fish. Like, that's my
Oh my
favorite thing.
God. For sure. Yeah. Did you guys go to Kelly's when you were in Manzanita, or where did you go for fish?
We actually went to just the little market that's right there in town. I
The
can't
Big
think of the name of
Apple, I
it.
think.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We went
Awesome.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they have a local case and the guy talked us through stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's the thing too. I think most people are traveling to littler places, not necessarily bigger places.
Yeah.
But even if you're coming to a big city like Portland, there are really good local options that aren't your Safeway or your Albertsons, but are like small mom and pop or thoughtfully curated places to shop, right? Um,
Yes.
I love that tip. I mean, it saved my life in the packing panic.
Yeah.
Honestly, and waste. You mentioned waste. I
Hmm.
used to be so, it's like I pre-plan all these meals, but then we end up wanting to eat out because there's a new restaurant or a farmer's market or a food cart. And yeah, so I definitely like ditching the pre-planning and just being more spontaneous. So that leads me to my next question, which is how spontaneous are you on your adventures and what sets you up for success to be spontaneous?
Yeah, I think that spontaneity is clutch for being on the road as much as I've been and like being chill about it. Because as we all know, especially if we have a family, traveling is hard and can be very stressful, and we're out of our environment. We can have short tempers. And so go with the flow. I have a shirt that says no bad trips. And I found out that if you go in prepared, with all of your personal stuff and a good attitude, but be prepared for anything could happen. Traffic could happen, detours, weather, things aren't open, whatever. Just with the idea that, hey, it's all part of the fun, right? It's all part of the adventure. The whole idea is just like not being on our couch at home doing the same old anyway. So,
Right.
kind of going back to that, I have outfits for the theme of we're going to go be pirates at the beach. So let's go and look for pirate things to do, or just kind of like let that magical theme and idea come to be, as opposed to like if it's on an itinerary there doesn't leave any room for the magic to come through.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me it's very go with the flow. If I always leave extra early in the morning so that if we want to pull over someplace and see it we can, try to have a little bit of wiggle room, because it's no fun to just be on a really strict like energy budget when you're out there.
Well, exactly. So, in order for, I mean, I want to talk about, you talked about like, go with the flow and some mental health stuff, which I want to get into next. But before we veer over in that direction, you mentioned getting up and leaving early. Is your car fueled up? Like, what are you doing? What are the tactical things that are done before you go to bed so that you're getting up and getting on the road?
Yes, so I try to stay travel ready now, but it does take time to get to that point. So I like to be fueled up the night before, like fully if I can. I like to be packed up, not with things in the car, but like right by the door, ready to go. I'm usually packed a day or two ahead of time if I can. Because I have like a little travel toiletry bag that's always ready to go. I just, when I get home, I check the inventory and make sure that it's got my little shampoo, my conditioner, my face wash, Q-tips. I've got a little medical kit, so that's always ready to go. I always have just like a pack of underwear that stays in my suitcase because I'm one of those people, I gotta have like 12 pairs of underwear no matter what.
Always, always.
So I've got a little bag that it's just like those pairs just stay there and they're like travel ready too.
Yeah.
I've tried out some new clothes on trips and new underwear on trips, and that is no good. Like you've got to have your tried and true,
Yeah.
So I like to have everything ready the day before at least, so that I can be up at I get up at 6 or 7 and want to be on the road usually, before 9 just to beat traffic.
Totally.
Yeah, what else? Making sure that the car is tuned up. So oil change is really important because of how much I travel. Making sure my brakes are in good order and that my tires are good. I've had to switch those out going 70,000 miles. And then I use Waze also, which is an app on your phone, and you can put in your destination, and you can view your routes, and it adjusts in real time if there's like an accident. It also warns you if there's police ahead or a car on the side of the road or whatever. And it also connects to my car has real-time weather radar. So
nice.
I make sure, that's really cool, especially in the winter. So I make sure all that's loaded in the night before too, in case I need to adjust my routes. And I always look at ODOT has a camera called tripcheck.com, and that has cameras on a map all throughout the state.
That camera system has saved me from traveling the wrong way in the winter, like 1,000%. And it I think it's all over the US because I've used it to travel to Leavenworth, which there's multiple ways to get to Leavenworth. One of them can be hella nasty because it's I-84, right? And a lot of times 84 closes down and it can be a really dangerous place to drive in the winter. So I definitely, I've fallen madly in love with at least looking that up in the winter, not so much in the summer. But I think once, when was it? 2021 that we had a really bad fire season. And that is another time when I started really using those cameras because we were supposed to be camping somewhere and somebody was like, oh, it might be really smoky. And I was like, oh, let me check the cameras because that's a long drive to then go live in a tent if it's like real bad air conditioning.
That's a good point. I use, it's called purpleair.com.
Okay.
And it's self-reported through these little devices. We have one that reads the air quality. And it's the same thing. It's on an Oregon map, so you can look and see where you're going and check that with the routes and then with Waze, like all three of those things hooked in, and you feel like, I don't know, there's a secret agent or something.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think what I'm going to take away from this little section of our time today is a little bit more thought and intentionality can really set you up for success. I mean, even going places that right? Just taking the extra time, having the apps, having the chargers and all the things in kind of like a ready to go thing. I love the idea of having, I'm actually going to take this. I'm going to get like a to-go case, and it's just like refill it when you get home so that you always have your shampoo, your face wash, those things that you want just in a small ready to go, and they're always ready. I love that. Anything else that you want to share? Because I really do want to talk with you about traveling and taking care of your mental health on the road.
Yeah, I mean, so many of that stuff bleeds over. Like for me, having products that smell really good and are nice, my face wash, my brush, that all helps when I'm on the road. That all goes into the mental health. So like a lot of how I prepare is preparing to not feel like alone and isolated in a new space.
Yeah. So let's talk about it because I travel a lot. Probably at least once a month, I'm somewhere that is not my home. And depending on the length of time, like I think 1 night, 2 nights, I'm good with getting thrown off my routine. But the reality is my routine, my practices keep me mentally sane. So what are you doing? What are your tips and tricks here? Like, how are you staying sane? Because I think part of why a lot of people don't want to fly or travel is because it's nuts and people are unregulated. So how do we regulate on the road and enjoy this life?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're right. Like 2 or 3 days is cool, but you get in those 4 or 5 day stretches, and that's where stuff starts to fall apart. You start to miss those routines because for me, my mental health is very much hinged on my routines. So carrying those through in a way that's gentle while I travel is key because I also can't beat myself up for not following strictly to, what I have at home. So going to the gym is a big one, and that's like the first one that goes when I'm on the road, right?
Yeah.
So because there's no gym usually, or I'm busy. So I track everything on my Apple Watch, which gives me like a physical look at what I'm actually doing. And I realize that on the days that I'm traveling, I'm actually burning almost 3 times as many calories than I would do at home, like working at my desk. Just getting the car loaded and gas station and unloading and hotel and meeting people and going for little walks, it adds up. I used to think, oh, I'm sitting all day long. It's, driving. I'm actually not being active, but I am. So just having that visual to know ahead of time, I'm putting out an extra amount of energy. So what does that mean? I've got to stay hydrated. Like that's the number one thing that happens to me when I'm traveling is I will get dehydrated. And if that happens, then everything else starts to go. Because for me, dehydration equals anxiety. um, Already overstimulated in an environment that I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Everything is new roads, there's obstacles on the roads, new bed, just new bathroom, new food, all that stuff. So having like my little things that keep me grounded. So I have like all my things that smell good because sense of smell brings me back really quick. I have my healthy foods that we talked about that I can grab if I'm hungry, that will keep my blood sugar stable. And I allow myself, like, I don't, it doesn't matter if you just ate a bunch of junk food or whatever. Like, if your brain is foggy on the road, eat some nuts. It's
Yeah.
fine. Like, just go gentle with myself in that space. And then I always have people I check in with too when I'm traveling. So if I'm solo, I'm checking in with my husband, or I'll check in with my mom or my grandma, just a text. I share location. So just a little bit of like grounding,
Yeah.
so I don't feel totally alone. And pacing myself. I used to go gung ho. Like, I got to get everything done. I got to see every single person. And I've gotten better at slowing down big time and saying, I've got to time box things. I've got to not try and do all of the things, especially in weather. So, weather is another thing that really can take it out of me. So, too much sun. So I've been really good about wearing long sleeves and hats almost every time I leave the house. That helps to not get overheated. Um, and then like wind or rain or like a long hike, all of those things, just being very aware that these are extra stressors on the body.
Yeah.
Um, just having that awareness and saying, I don't know if you've heard the spoon theory, like you have so many spoons in a day, like in a jar, and when you do certain tasks that are hard, you take out a spoon, and when you've used up all your spoons for the day, you're done. Don't keep trying to do it. So, just
Um,
knowing, right? Because I will just
yeah.
keep trying. If I don't have those visuals in place, right? Like, how much am I actually walking? How much energy am I actually putting out? So, to drive to the beach, that's going to be like a whole spoon,
Yeah.
to do one meeting with a person, that's a whole spoon. navigating, you're going on a hike or navigating to a new place. So just having those awareness checkpoints along the way helps a lot.
Yeah, you talk a lot around being like easy. You use a different word. Being gentle with yourself, I think is how you phrased it. And I'm curious what your thoughts are here because I think, I have experience where I'm traveling, I need to go see all of these people. I want to do all of this, plus all of this, plus, oh my God, there's something new and spontaneous I'm in. And that's when you crash, right? So if we take this analogy of the spoons, which I super love, I want to touch on how often are you checking in with how many spoons you actually have available and how gracious are you with adjusting? Because I think that is the key, right? Because when we're traveling, I don't always sleep great and my digestive system isn't always great. And so I might not have as many spoons as I think. So what are you doing in those situations?
Yeah, that especially happens to me like around day 3 or 4 is when my pace slows down significantly, right? The first
Yeah,
2 days, it's like go, go, go. And then I hit a wall and then I get mad at myself because I can't do all the things.
right.
So, one thing that I practice is radical acceptance. So, if it's coming up for me that it's too much for me, and that looks like me getting grumpy, me getting anxious, me crying for no reason. Like that's it.
Yeah.
I'm a Pisces, so the tears will lead the way. And then I have to sit down, and I've had to cancel a lot of plans mid trip, and I'm just honest with people. And I try to be honest with myself and say, hey, I've got, I have a diagnosis I have to manage at all times. I'm taking care of myself, usually as a solo woman traveling. So I've got to take a step back, or I can only come see you for 30 minutes, or let's move this to the next day. I try to check in after like every big thing I've done.
Okay.
So drive, check in with myself, sit down, kind of just usually because I work in social media, I've got to check in all the time anyway. So just remove myself for a moment, kind of check in with what's going on Wild Oregon Girl. And if it's really agitating me, that's a sign like, okay, I'm gonna slow down, text my husband, text my mom, go do the next thing, check in at meal times. And then I found that just with my age and stuff, I don't go late anymore with anything. And especially when I'm traveling alone, I try to be tucked in, around dark and not,
Yeah.
I used to stay out later, but, so yeah, I check in multiple times a day.
Yeah.
I just have to,
Yeah.
especially, yeah, day 3 or 4, I'm cooked for sure.
And what
That's
is
the fail point.
right? What's the conversation you're having? I mean, you mentioned that if you're agitated, that's a sign. What else what is that dialogue for you? Because I think a lot of us want to have that dialogue, but we don't.
Yeah, if I will like go online, or if I'm noticing that I have less patience or something's making me really mad, or I'm feeling really sensitive to something, that's a sign. I'm a really sensitive person. So for me, this like a lot of stimuli, a lot of like even noise or people or lights, it almost causes me to malfunction right away. So in a way, that's a gift because I have to stop and manage it, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't build and build and build and build.
Right.
In the past, it would probably have built up and I wouldn't have listened to those first signs. But yeah, those first signs are going to be like a little bit of agitation, anxiety, self judgment. Just, I notice my self talk. Like if I start saying, this is hard, or I really
Mm,
I need a break. Usually that's the first thing is I'll start telling myself, this is hard right now.
yeah.
And then I'll say, okay, well, then I need to pull back, and I have permission to pull back because that actually benefits everybody. I don't want to be showing up. as not my full self, not well. Like when I told you I needed to reschedule last time, I was coming off of a really high stimulus trip because I was filming a parade. It was like right in the parade with lots and lots of people and meeting a lot of people and going to a fair. And then my husband was gone. It was just like, ah. So
Yeah.
if I'd have showed up that day to that podcast, it wouldn't have been a good conversation for anybody. I don't think it wouldn't have,
Yeah.
I wasn't ready. So just saying, I'm sorry, I can't do that right now is a big step for me. And I think
Yeah.
for a lot of people too, a lot of people don't want to put themselves first, to put everybody ahead also. Like they'll
Right.
push through, but then it's like lackluster. So
Yeah. It's no good
yeah,
for anyone. It's no good for anyone. But I think that that's like the piece that I feel like, I mean, it's a practice, right? It's a practice to be able to flex that muscle and stand up for yourself and advocate for yourself. It's something that we often are teaching Ruby. She'll be like, at a restaurant, she'll be like, will you order me this? And I'm like, no, girl, advocate for yourself. Like, but it's not necessarily something that we were taught, I feel, as a generation. So what would you say to somebody who is really still struggling with that people pleasing and continues to put themselves last? Like, how do we get there? What did you do to get there?
yeah, I'm still working on it. I'm working on it today. Like I have a thread going about standing up to a toxic family member right now. And I'm doing it for my child because it's easier to do it for somebody else than for myself. But
Yeah.
like you said, we weren't taught those skills. I learned these skills in rehab when I was in my mid 30s. Like um, practicing advocating for yourself in everyday things, like little things, like you said, like ordering for yourself even if you're scared, or calling like to schedule a medical appointment even if you're scared. And also practicing just like taking care of yourself like you would a child or a baby. Like, what do I need in this moment right now? Is it a cool beverage? Is it a hot drink? Is it like to go sit in the dark?
Yeah.
And allow yourself those things every single day. And then when you're out in the big, scary real world, it comes easier just because it's a muscle. Self-care is a muscle. Self-awareness is like a muscle. You just gotta start little, like,
Yeah.
oh, I really want this thing right now. And it's like, okay, well then give that to yourself, be kind. Or like 3 o'clock rolls around and I want to push and be productive till 5, but no, maybe the best thing is to take care of myself first. So
Definitely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I practiced this muscle yesterday and I'm so proud of myself, so I want to share. So I was driving somewhere where I had been, but it had been maybe like 5 years. And I was
Mhm.
like on my way there, I'm taking my dog to a chiropractic appointment. It's ridiculous. It's a whole thing. Anyways, we're driving to the chiropractor and I'm like, "Oh, I know where this is. There's a Dutch Bros up the hill." And I was like, I'm going to get myself a Dutch Bros. It has been years since I had a Dutch Bros. It's like a really Oregon thing. It's a special treat. They have super sugary coffees. But when I was in college, that is what you had, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, so I like wanted I second guessed myself and I typed it into Google on my phone and my phone was like it doesn't exist. So I'm sitting at the light to turn back on the freeway and I see the sign that says Dutch Bros and I was like, damn it. I knew there was a Dutch Bros up there. My map was wrong. So here I am. I'm in this left turn lane and I'm like, I'm going to bust through and go straight to Dutch Bros. I'm going to advocate for myself. And it's like that is how you practice advocating for yourself, is following that desire that you have. And I think that we have to start practicing and giving us ourselves permission. And guess what? I had the most delicious Dutch Bros. It was fast, it was easy, and my brain obviously works better than my phone sometimes.
Yes, that's the truth. That's why you should download maps, because technology is not reliable. But you're so right. Like you practiced the muscle and you did the follow through and you rewarded yourself and you got a tasty coffee treat and it's so true. Like we learned in rehab, we would go like to Starbucks, and we would make happy memories forward, so that we would know what to do in times of distress. Like, okay, we're going to go to Starbucks, we're going to get a treat, it's going to be awesome, everything's going to work out great. Then we're going to go back home and store that for later. So later on, you're stressed, you're out on a trip or whatever, and you're like, oh, there's Starbucks. I'm going to go get that drink that I know works for me, that's safe for me, that connects to a happy time. And it just doubles down on that, like, you're taking care of yourself. And that's what you did. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay to go get a little treat, reward yourself for
Oh my
being
God.
smarter than the phone.
Exactly. Happy memories forward. I love that. I mean, I think that this conversation is so beautiful, Renee, and I'm just so appreciative of your vulnerability and your honesty. What you share and bring into the online space is really what I believe more people should be doing, because nobody's perfect. Our stories are really messy and complicated. But I really love what you are sharing and bringing forth. And I think this conversation around it really ties into intentionality, the whole conversation. Be intentional, set yourself up for success. Think about it in advance. Be easy, be gentle on yourself if it doesn't work out, and then make those happy memories forward. So if that is a sweet coffee drink, or a bucket of French fries, or a skinny dip in the pond, like whatever that is, the happy memory. I love that. And that we need more of that, so that we can feel better in life, so that we are more regulated humans. When we meet each other, we're regulated, and we bring more happy memories to other people as well, right?
Yeah, those are just tools for all of us. And when we're using those tools, like you said, we can meet other people and like share that regulation, especially like socially, right? Because
Yeah.
like you said in the beginning, when we're traveling, that's a space where all of us are out of sorts. So the more we can just put our own life masks on first and
Yeah.
just take care of ourselves, and we can all help each other in that way, I think that's the best way to save everybody, is to save ourselves.
So important. Well, thank you, Renee, for coming on. Of course, I'm going to drop all the links and everything, how you can connect with Renee. If anyone's listening and they have a vacation rental, you can hire Renee. I did. It was awesome. I'm so glad. And we actually have another property that I'm going to be hitting Renee up to send her to. She makes great content, and she's just a really lovely human. So thank you, Renee, for showing up again on Critical Conversations. And I will look forward to trolling you online in the most positive and loving way.
I love it. Thank you so, so much.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you all soon. Have a beautiful day. Take care and travel safe this summer.